Let's get into it. It's crime o'clock, yeah, feel that sound. Typically unique when the truth comes out. Tick-tock, won't stop, let the facts talk. Pull up real close, yeah, it's crime o'clock. Clock, clock, yeah. Typically new, neon signs glow, brick wall behind me. Headlines loud, but they never define me. They rush the story, skip the proof. I slow it down, let it show the truth. Files on deck, read every line. Timestamps matter, so does time. If it don't fit, I don't force the frame. Ask one question, whole story change. No fear my voice, no need to shout. Paper speaks when you read it out. If the math's off, I'll circle twice. Truth ain't loud, but it ain't nice. Yeah. Read it again. It's crime o'clock, yeah. Feel that sound. Typically unique when the truth comes out. Tick tock, won't stop. Let the facts talk. Pull up real close, yeah. It's crime o'clock. It's crime o'clock. Read it again. They sell a narrative if I sell receipts. Courtroom quiet, but the pages speak. Word for word, no added spin. Let it stand, yeah, let that sink in. Screenshot save, timeline's tight. Missing pieces keep me up at night. If they say alleged, I say why. If they say case closed, I say try. No rush here, we do it right. Truth don't bend for the likes of hype. If you came for noise, you're in the wrong spot. This is evidence, this is crime o'clock. Clock, clock, clock. Stay with me. This isn't background noise. This is pattern recognition. This is documents. This is crime o'clock. It's crime o'clock, yeah. Feel that sound. Typically unique when the truth comes out. Tick tock, won't stop. Let the facts talk. Say it with me now. Crime o'clock. It's crime o'clock. Typically unique. It's crime o'clock. Yeah. If you're here, you're early. If you're listening, you're paying attention. Show starts now.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Crime O'Clock on Typically Unique. Happy Wednesday. I had to check my calendar. I have been so off on my days this week. It's Wednesday. Look at my hair. I said wet hair, don't care day. Sorry. It's air drying. Wednesday, March 4th, and today is my mom's birthday. So I am waiting for my sister to come into town later, and we're going out to dinner with my mom tonight. So she just called like right before I press live. I was like, I got 2 seconds. Happy hump day. Happy hump day. Yeah. What else is going on over here? Got the birthday celebration tonight, and my birthday is next Monday. And I have a new obsession that I'm hoping for. Tomboy's birthday's in a month. I'm going to show you what I am. Besides the crows, I'm still, I've been talking to some of you about how I'm trying to make friends with the crows in my neighborhood. I had to put it on, like I started it before winter hit, and then they've been MIA because of the winter. And so I had to stop, but I was leaving them trails of peanuts to my house because my house doesn't have trees in it. So they don't really hang out down here, but they're down at the end of the road. I'm like, come to my house. I'll feed you. But let me show you this real quick because this is what I am currently loving. Carlos saw it. He was like, no. I was like, come on. It's funny. Oh my god. If it will let me, there it is. Yep. Will it show up? Yep, there it is. Okay. Can I move it? Oh, it's showing up good enough for you guys. All right. I love that one. Bubble bath. Bubble bath. I'm gonna do it. I went to the porch, you guys. There we go. Get that off of there. Do any of you have a porch goose? Anybody in chat have a porch goose? I am obsessed and I want to dress them up and put it on my front porch and entertain all my neighbors. That's my goal. So that balloons with the bubbles is hilarious. Witchy was. You've been obsessed with crows since 2002. Have you made friends with them? Do you feed them? Yeah, let's all get porch geese and we could share our ideas because that is just too funny. I actually learned about it from a really touching TikTok video I saw where there was an older couple that had a goose sitting on their porch and I don't know if they dressed it up too much. And a young teenage girl down the road started dropping off outfits to them anonymously. And then something happened and she got a letter from the daughter of because the wife at the house where she was dropping off the outfits had passed away. And so her dropping off those outfits anonymously was like giving some joy to the husband who was left as a widow. And then he passed. And so the daughter found the girl who was dropping him off and got her own porch goose and outfits. And I was like, oh my God, that's so touching. I want one now. All right, enough about the porch goose. Today we're going to talk about connecting back to yesterday with the Supreme Court hearing that was about the appeals process after accepting a plea deal. And if you didn't get to catch that live yesterday, we listened. It was only audio. We listened to the Supreme Court arguments for Hunter versus the United States. And it was all about this person named Hunter. His personal rights were being violated, and there's some like due process rights that have extreme issues with the appeals. I keep mixing those two words up, with the appeals process after a plea agreement. So that's what it was all about. I felt, if you were there or if you listened to it somewhere else yesterday, let me know in the chat right now. What was your feeling at the end of that hearing? Did you think it sounded promising? Like what they were asking for is to change the rules around appealing after a plea deal so that it's more fair, that it will address more issues than the two that they have right now, which is ineffective assistance of counsel and the extreme above statutory charging, charging more than they should as the consequence for the crime. I thought it was promising. I hope it does get changed because it sounds like they are going to allow more reasons for an appeal. It sounded to me like all of them could be under the umbrella of miscarriage of justice. So things like bias, things like misconduct, all of those things. So I wanted to focus on that today with the Brian Cobberger case and go back and look at old information and footage that to me looks like there's a lot of those issues in this case that they've already raised. So I'm wondering, um, would that give him a better footing going forward for one of these kinds of appeals, since I feel like they've already raised a lot of these issues, right? It's not like they're coming out of left field, like Johnny come lately, like, oh, now I want to try to fight things. No, we've been trying to fight things the whole entire time, which kind of adds to, I feel, the issues. So we're going to look at that today. Before we get into that, though, I had some breaking news in my neck of the woods last night. And my daughter, she's younger, she's in her 20s. She's always on social media, and she's come across a few things, and then she doesn't share it with me until like days or weeks later. I'm like, could you tell me this stuff like immediately? Because I got a podcast over here. got a crime YouTube channel over here. Could you tell me right away? So she's started sending me things right away. Thank you, Carly. She's a mod in here, but she's a working girl, so I'm going to show you what happened over here in Cleveland. Is that just a picture? What is this? Oh, that was my link to myself. What is this? Oh, no. Hold on. This is my local news channel. There we go.
I'm Ed Peterson. Worked hard pretty much all my life. Construction industry. I was out on the highway, lifting, carrying, pulling, moving. I've had some back issues. The old mattress was not my friend. Went to the original mattress.
There we go. Mattress.
This morning, Cleveland police say they're still searching for answers after 2 young girls were found dead in suitcases in Collinwood. Investigators say there are no suspects right now. Candace Hare joins us now live with the latest this morning. Candace, good morning.
Good morning, Dave. So Cleveland police, they shared the latest details after that discovery was made on Monday near East 162nd Street and Midland Avenue. And here's what we know right now. So this all unfolded on Monday evening when officers responded to a call about a suspected body in a suitcase. When they arrived, they found a young girl in a shallow grave. And as homicide detectives searched the area, they discovered a second shallow grave with another suitcase and another young girl inside. Police say the victims are believed to be between 8 and 14 years old, and right now there are no clear signs of how they died, and investigators say the bodies had been there for some time.
We have no reports of any missing children that match these identifications. We are checking statewide as well. We also have the assistance from our federal, state, and local partners. This is a priority.
Now, at this time, police say that there are no known suspects and no threat to the public, but they are asking for your help. If you look at your screen right now, you'll see the phone number for Crime Stoppers. And if you notice anything unusual in the area, you are asked to call. Dave?
All right. Candace Hare reporting live for us this morning.
Is Crime Stoppers just an Ohio thing? Because they always say call Crime Stoppers. But I didn't hear that in the Nancy Guthrie case, or maybe I just didn't pay attention to it. So we're going to listen to the press conference about these. So this guy was out walking his dog near this, I don't know if it's an elementary school or middle school, high school, Ginn Academy on the east side of Cleveland. His dog went over to one suitcase. The guy, oh God, poor guy, opened it up and discovered a body inside. But we're going to watch this press conference. It's real short, and we'll just compare it to the other press conferences we've heard, like with the Nancy Guthrie case and Brian Cobberger's case. I just listening to these news clips and everything, I'm like, I'm proud of the Cleveland Police Department. I think they were direct, sounded like they knew what they were talking about. They clearly know their processes and procedures. I don't know. When we watch it, let me know what you guys think. I want to say hello to everybody. Hey, Witchy Was. Hey, Christina. You have it there? Okay, good. Yeah, Crime Stoppers. I thought it was a national thing, but Tomboy, it's nap o'clock for you. I saw what you sent me. That looks super interesting. I don't want to step on Dago's toes. Is he going to show that today? Blue Devil, good morning. Kathleen Bell, hello. Debbie 425, hello. Ro, good to see you. Jen 7S, hello. Altruistic Murder, good morning. You're working and listening. I gotcha. Becca, hey guys, I'm so happy to see you all here. Sleuther, I see Sleuther 75. Hello. And I saw Mike up there early. He was early. Buffalo Chick. Megastar. Italian girl. Hey guys, if I missed you, I just didn't scroll up far enough. I'm sorry. Hello. Welcome in. All right, let's look at the Cleveland Police press conference, because I thought they had it going on. We'll do this one.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Just after 6 p.m. last night, the Division of Police received a call to respond to the area of East 162nd in Midland. The callers stated they had found what appeared to be a body inside of a suitcase at this location. The officers responded out and located a deceased individual that was in a shallow grave inside of a suitcase. The officers immediately began their investigation as they canvassed the area for any potential evidence on scene. The officers located what appeared to be a second shallow grave, and they could tell that there was a second suitcase in that location. The officers at that time identified that there was a body inside of that second suitcase as well. The medical examiner's office responded out, and they took custody of the individuals and for their further investigation. So we completed our investigation on scene. The only updates we have at this time are that the individuals are 2 juvenile Black females. The one individual is suspected to be anywhere between the ages of 8.5 to 13. The second is estimated to be of the age of 10.5 to 14. At this time, there are no clear indicators of the cause of death of the 2 young females. And we're asking if anyone has any information, saw anything suspicious in the area, that they are to contact the Cleveland Division of Police Homicide Unit at 216-623-5464. We will be operating that line 24 hours a day, so someone will be available to answer those calls. Or they can call Crime Stoppers at 216-252-7463. At this time, we don't know how long the juveniles had been at this location. It was some time, so it's not just something that was recent. The investigation is ongoing. We have to wait for results from the medical examiner, and from there, we should have an update once we have further information. So if you have any questions, we'll open it up.
The body's dismembered.
No.
And approximately how big are these suitcases if you were to?
I am not going to give that information right now. So the only thing I do ask is if somebody saw something that was suspicious involving something that sounds familiar, I don't want to give certain information out that could tamper the investigation.
Like, I love her. She's like, here's what happened. Here's what we've done so far. Give me your questions. Yes, no. Can't tell you that, because she didn't say like, well, I don't know that. She's like, not going to tell you that because, you know, we're using that information.
Were the two victims related?
No, we don't have any identification of either of the victims at this time.
Do you have any suspects?
No.
Are there missing persons, missing children that match the two girls that were found?
So it's a good question. We have checked our, locally, we have no reports of any missing children that match these identifications. We are checking statewide as well. We also have the assistance from our federal, state, and local partners. This is a priority. This is a traumatic event for our officers, for the community. And, this is just such a tragic incident. But we're trying to develop any leads we can. That's why we're also asking for the community's help.
I know in last night's press release, you said that the department said there's no ongoing threat to the public. What leads investigators to come to that conclusion?
When we say that, it's more, we know that this didn't just happen. We still have to develop exactly when this happened. And, we don't have any indication that there's a clear threat to safety.
Can you give any sort of update on the condition?
At least she tried to answer that question. So the reporter asked one of the officers, or someone in charge said, there's no threat to the public. Can you explain why? And she said, she just answered it because we know those bodies have been there for a long time. And what was her second part to that? I guess she's implying because nothing else they haven't uncovered anything else like that, so they don't think that there's an immediate threat. I have your comment up here, Christina. You said a little boy was found in a suitcase in Indiana. That's crazy. Because Indiana borders Ohio. So, I hope this isn't like a serial thing.
Of the bodies that are found, I know you said it's been some time. This isn't something that just happened, but any sort of.
So right now, the only thing we could say, there's no clear indicators. So there's nothing that's visible enough to determine what the cause of death was.
We had heard, Chief, that perhaps these children were malnourished. Is that something that you heard as well?
I don't have a comment on that. I would defer to the medical examiner once their results come out.
Were the individuals clothed?
I will also defer to the medical examiner on that at this time.
Was there any identification inside the suitcase or a name on a shirt, like a kid's shirt, or anything that would lead you to?
Unfortunately, we have no indicators right now of the identity of the children involved.
Should we believe that they're local, or do we not know that
we
either?
Can't even determine that at this time.
Can you kind of describe that neighborhood test? Is there often foot traffic in that area where the bodies
Yeah,
were
so
found?
the caller in this incident was just a resident from the area who was walking their dog through the area. This is a field close to the school over there. This is just a residential neighborhood that I'm sure a lot of people do frequent. The weather has been, changing recently. The snow's been thawing, so it's really hard to determine the length of time at this point.
There are some businesses around there with cameras that appear to be pointing. I don't know how far they go, but have you been gathering some of that evidence?
Yeah, so our detectives have been out there actively walking the neighborhoods and gathering the information. The difficult part is that timeline, how far you have to look back, and a lot of cameras don't capture historical data. So we are currently still canvassing for that. So if someone has cameras and they want to, just do a cursory review to see if they have anything suspicious, we please let us know and give us a call.
For
She-
anyone watching this story, you want people to come forward who may have seen something suspicious. What are some things that, should set off an alarm and they should contact you about?
Anything that you see that's out of the ordinary. Did you see anyone spending a significant amount of time in that area? Someone who seems out of sorts to your neighborhood. Usually in residential areas, what's happening in your neighborhood. Something just seems a little bit off. That's why we're asking that anyone who has anything that they believe to be information directly related to or suspicious, that they give us a call.
Chief, we had heard that the FBI and perhaps U.S. Marshals were out searching yesterday. Does that search have anything to do with these missing individuals?
No, that's not connected.
Thank
Are
you.
you working with any other agencies in this? Maybe the FBI, maybe, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, anything like that?
We are working with all of our federal, state, and local partners. From Department of Children and Family Services to CMSD to the FBI, this is a priority investigation.
As far as your knowledge, have you had any other cases here locally similar to this where children were found in suitcases or missing people or like anything like this before?
Not that I'm aware of.
Chief, can you describe, when it involves children, I mean, it takes this crime to another level.
It does.
Can you talk about that?
So when you look at that, you have an individual who's a resident who locates the trauma that happens right there. And, at the end of the day, our officers are just regular people and their parents. And, it's something that a lot of officers never have to experience. We hope they would never have to experience. And it's traumatic for everyone. And it's traumatic just for those who live in the area to know that this was right there outside their doorstep.
Should people be on heightened alert in and around this area?
I think all residents should always be cautious to the ongoings of their neighborhoods. Just, keeping alert for anything that is suspicious and always reporting it. We can't do police work alone. It takes the community to be a part of that, to call us, to let us know if something in their neighborhood is suspicious that needs, something for us to take a further look at.
Have you been in contact with, CMSD, any local schools, things like that, working with their
We're
principals?
working with everybody. Yeah.
Can I ask, and I say you don't want to give away too many details, but the brand of suitcase perhaps?
Yeah, I
way as an
appreciate the
indicator?
question, but because of the integrity of the investigation, I just can't give those specifics at this time. And as soon as we develop more leads or we have additional information, we will keep you updated. As soon as, the coroner's office has more for us, we will keep you updated on that information. We just the most important thing is misinformation gets out there quickly. And we want to clarify exactly what we know at this time. The delay in, us giving the update is because this is it's a sensitive investigation and there wasn't a lot to go on at this point. So we want to give you as much factual information that we have as soon as we could.
Are there any solid leads right now?
No.
Can I ask, and you may not be able to give it, but can you classify how badly decomposed these bodies were? Was it a great amount? Obviously, that's going to impact the investigation.
Well, I'm going to leave it to the coroner's determination because they take custody of the bodies and, they're doing their review right now. So they will probably provide that update when they're complete.
So
All right. So these poor little girls, one was between like 8.5, they're estimating, 8.5 to 13.5, 10 and the other girl is 10.5 to 14.5. And I thought it was telling that she wouldn't answer. And you can tell this reporter probably got a scoop maybe from the person who found them. He asked if they were malnourished, and that thought crossed my mind when I found out that no one in that area had been reported missing. So is this a case of severe abuse, neglect? Asked if they were malnourished and asked if they were clothed, and she wouldn't answer. She said that's, the medical examiner has to handle that. But then they asked about clothing being a clue, and she said that they didn't have that. So I think that's, I don't know. She also wouldn't speak about the how much the bodies were decomposed for a timeline. So this is a disturbing one. So I'm going to keep my eye on this case and see what comes of this. So they don't have an ID for the victims. They don't have a suspect. They don't have a lead. No one's missing. I know that parents went to the school and started taking their children out yesterday just because everybody was upset about it. Could you imagine? That's crazy. Yeah. So one thing Carlos and I were talking about, he actually brought this up, so kudos to him, but schools have to keep track of if a student is going to leave one school, like withdraw from a school, then whatever school they're going to, even if it's in another state, has to request the records from the school that they came from. And the school that they're leaving, like, keeps an eye on that. If they don't get a request for the records, like, they have to account for that child. So I think that's a really good tracking system that we have in our society to, like, account for these kids. So that can happen through the public school system, but the issue comes in when people are homeschooling their children. Then you don't have. My point is, if these children were enrolled in school somewhere or supposed to be enrolled in school somewhere and they weren't, that would, like, send out a red flag to start looking for them, which would be good, which will give the police a lead on identifying these girls. But if they were homeschooled, you don't get those red flags because they're just at home and no one knows if they're there's not a routine to follow, right? They're not, like, checking into a place. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Yeah, witchy. Yeah, homeschooling. All right, a lot of things I wanted to address from chat. So Anna D, hello. Let's see. You had to call because there's a missing child in your area. She's been missing for 7 years. Oh my goodness. Did you call the Crime Stoppers line about that? That's awesome. Everybody should be looking at that who's been missing in your area. Hey, Beach Babe. And I wanted to go back. I saw you guys putting all your tips about the crows and everything like that. I love it. I see there's other people in here that are also trying to make friends with the crows. So we'll have to keep sharing information about that. Oh, and I wanted to urge everybody to join Discord. I know I have the link for it on my community post. It's a while back, probably a couple weeks back. But we can share information about our crow experience and stories. I'm trying to find, it's a banner. I'll scroll the Discord thing across the bottom. Maybe if a mod can find the link in the community post, that would help. Where did I put it? Discord. There it is. Maybe I'll just do that. Okay. All right. So that's the Cleveland case. Going to keep an eye on that. Now, so to Idaho 4 and Brian Cobberger. One of the first things in this case, well, after thinking about the Supreme Court hearing yesterday, and we're all, like, anxiously waiting, is he gonna, try to do some kind of an appeal? One of the first things that I focused on was the fact that Brian Cobberger's defense team had already filed that interlocutory appeal. So I had to look up all these words yesterday. Oh my goodness. So that interlocutory appeal is something they did way back. Wait a minute. Yeah. I think it was based on the grand jury. So they've already like put into motion, have on record. And I think a lot of this is, of course, they wanted these things to get sent through and approved, and that appeal was like, dismiss the case because at the grand jury, you relied on this PCA, and the PCA has a couple issues, right? A lot of things, if not everything in the PCA, I think we have found to not have evidence to support it. And then there's another issue with the PCA about the officers and the people that were involved in writing it, things like that. So I have a lot to listen to and read about that. So, oh yeah, let me talk about Discord for a minute. I wanted to do that because I was not a Discord user. Every time like I would try to get in there, I'm like, what is this? It's confusing. If you get the app, and it's very easy to just set up your own little, ID in there. You do that. Once you do that, if you get my link and you go, if you click my link and it'll just say accept, all Discord is like a chat, just like the chat right here in YouTube. You can type messages, you can add videos, you can put memes. It's just a way to communicate. So I was leery of it, but I was like, okay, let me figure this out. And it wasn't hard. Just click on things. Just click on things. But I like it because it's a way to communicate when we're not online. And like if you find something that you want to share with me that's interesting that you want me to cover, you could drop the link in Discord and then I have it instead of having to send me an email, because to be honest, I don't check my email all the time. I'm sorry, Christina. I'm sorry. Hi, Donna. 7 of 9. Hello. You can't figure it out, man. I'll do a video on it. I'll do a video on it because I really want to get some people in there. All right, let me show you. This is what I had. Guess I didn't. Isn't that? Oh, there it is. Okay. Share this tab. All right, I got to make this bigger for myself so I can see it. Nope, that's smaller. What are you doing? There we go. Oh, that was the main line. All right, I want to show you that after we read this. Okay, so this article, and I found this because Jules had done a video, Jules of all trades had done a video February of 24 or something. It was a long time ago. I had to scroll through her playlist. Hey, Lori. Okay, I will. I hope you're doing good, Lori. You've been on my mind. Yeah, Jules did a video on this, of course, a long time ago. I was looking for videos about the grand jury. Hard to find a lot. So she had this article that she had covered. So I pulled this up. It's by Kevin Fixler, at the Idaho Statesman. They've been covering this case. It says Brian Cobberger's attorneys appealed grand jury indictment to Idaho Supreme Court. It ruled. So this was the ruling. Okay, the Idaho Supreme Court on Tuesday, and this was from March 14th, 2024. The Idaho Supreme Court, so this is the state level Supreme Court. Yesterday was the federal Supreme Court, okay? And the Idaho Supreme Court denied a pretrial appeal from attorneys representing Brian Cobberger, the man charged with killing 4 University of Idaho students. The appeal stood to delay his murder trial further if granted. Cobberger's public defenders had argued that a grand jury sat by prosecutors for the case improperly indicted their client. Okay, so if you remember, Brian Cobberger's arrested. He waived his right to a speedy trial, so then there was no preliminary hearing. And I was wondering, like, if anybody does that, like, waives their right to a preliminary hearing, does the state always go to a grand jury? Because the grand jury is secret and there's lots of issues with it. That's how they got their indictment, through the grand jury. So he was improperly indicted on 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. This is what the defense is claiming. They contended that Idaho law left open the idea that grand jurors must reach the higher legal standard of beyond a reasonable doubt, the same as at trial to convict a defendant, rather than the long-standing threshold of probable cause to indict. Okay. Any of you out there studied this? Because I don't know how to make sense of this. I have the hearing pulled up where Jay Logsdon was the one that argued this. So the defense is saying that when you have a grand jury, the grand jury is just supposed to say, yes, you have enough evidence that this person probably committed the crime, that this person committed the crime. Probable cause. It's just supposed to be probable cause. That's what it's supposed to be. And it looks like the defense is arguing that they gave him, that the prosecution, so Bill Thompson, Ashley Jennings, gave improper instructions to the jury saying, oh, it should be beyond a reasonable doubt. Which, if that was what the grand jury was thinking, oh, we got to have evidence that's beyond a reasonable doubt. But they still indicted him. So they thought it was, that's where I don't understand. Maybe they're just honing in on improper instructions. There was improper instructions, so we have an appeal. What do you guys think? It was very confusing of what that reasoning is. Yes, and I just watched a video. Jay Logsdon says it. He's one of the he's for the defense. He's the one that argued this. And we're going to watch, not the whole thing, because, oh my God, it's so boring and you can hardly hear him, but I listened to it so you guys don't have to suffer through that. So I know what he's like saying and his points. But I will let you hear. He said to the judge, he said this out loud, like, well, yeah, some of the jurors wanted more information. And the judge kind of like got a little snippy back, like, you're not supposed to say that. Like, they don't want anything that came out of the grand jury to be public. And speaking of that, hey, Meg, maybe you can help me with this one. So I went to the documents because I thought I heard that something had been released or unredacted or something about the grand jury. I found 3 documents that were like, that said grand jury on them, but all they were was the days and times they met. That's all it was. So if there's something more than that that's out there, I asked for that in my Discord. See, that's one of the reasons why I want you guys to join my Discord. Let me know, because I I stared at those court documents and scrolled through like forever. I couldn't find anything. You're okay, Jen. Was challenged. So Jen says interlocutory appeal was basically challenging reasonable doubt versus probable cause. And the grand jury was misinstructed. I was wanting them to also try an IGG interlocutory appeal for the first impression. Ooh, interesting. So I like your verbiage here, reasonable doubt, challenging reasonable doubt, because they kept saying beyond a reasonable doubt. Yeah, it must just be as simple as that. Just accept. Hi, Susan Russo. Good to see you. Just the end. Okay. Yeah. That's why I couldn't find it. Hi, Eric. Oh, you're going back to when I covered Mexico. Yeah. All right. What else does it say in here? So in the one-page Supreme Court ruling issued Tuesday afternoon, the justices offered no legal rationale for their denial of the motion to appeal from Cobberger's attorneys. See, I think this right here could be good for Brian going forward because they denied it, but they didn't give a reason for denying it. So if they appeal and go through the appeal process and the higher courts end up hearing this and they see this, I think, shouldn't there be a reason? The appellate case is now closed. The justices took just over a month to dismiss the appeal. Of course, the prosecutors opposed the appeal. All right, so that was their first attempt to bring some of these issues to light, right? Try to get some kind of an appeal. Why do these Discord things expire? Sorry, guys. I'll take that down. That's a bummer. All right, we can get that off of there. Pulling up my next video. I don't need that one. We're beyond that. All right. So, let's just look at that hearing I was talking about. This was they wanted to dismiss the case, and there's still things I feel everything's going back to item A or whatever they're calling it, exhibit A, right? The PCA. Because the defense has been standing like 10 toes down that they didn't have enough to indict. They didn't have the evidence that they were claiming that they had to indict. So because of that, they appealed it and they were like, you should dismiss. You should dismiss this case. All right. I got timestamps, but we're not going to watch this whole thing. I'm not going to, bore you with this, but just to hear the beginning, I think it was 4:14. Let me look at my timestamp. Yep. Right. We'll do good enough.
I think that's about it. So we're here now on the defense motion to dismiss indictment on grounds of error in grand jury instructions.
You guys, I hope I wasn't bullying anybody into getting into Discord. It's okay if you don't. It's okay. It's okay. I was just making a plea for it. It's okay, Christina. If you want to, yay. If you don't, it's fine. I was just making my, good old try to push that.
Or in the alternative, remand for preliminary hearing. So Mr. Logston, I believe.
Okay, so this is another important point. They were asking for a remand. That was another word I learned yesterday, and I had to look it up. That means like go back to the beginning. So they wanted this grand jury indictment like thrown out, and we want a remand to go back to a preliminary hearing. So that would have been interesting because, of course, also that doesn't get approved. But I think that's important to know.
Is going to present the argument. Thank you.
Hey, Your Honor. Well, as Your Honor is aware, I wrote a lengthy brief.
I know this is hard to hear. Like none of them speak directly into the microphone. It's very echoey. So turn your volume up, put headphones in. We're just going to get the gist of how Logsdon approached this because personally, I didn't really like it. So we're going to kind of critique it a little bit. Hey Bootsy, good to see you. You're still waking up. Good morning, rise and shine. Yeah, they try to get it back. Yep. Yeah, either dismissed or back to a preliminary hearing is the way I'm taking it. Yeah.
Or two, on the subject of where we're supposed to be legally with our grand juries and where we actually are. And as your Honor.
Okay, so right off the bat, he's saying his argument is going to be based around where we are currently at in our court system, especially in Idaho, based on where we should be. So when I listened to his argument, I mean, he sounded like he was arguing in front of the Supreme Court. His argument is very historical. He brings up cases from the 1800s. He goes through the whole history of grand juries. It's very boring. It was hard to, I didn't feel like he connected the dots enough. And it's probably because it was hard to hear him. But I think it's fine to give all the back support. That's what he was doing. Like he's citing a million cases to support his position. But then when it came time to state his position, I personally did not feel it was strong. Like he should have changed his pitch of his voice. He should have there should have been a difference between right now I'm talking about my position and over here I'm talking about my support. I don't know. It just all blended together and I didn't think it was strong myself. So just kind of listen to how he's saying this.
Let me know this morning. Probably not going to change your mind because the Idaho Supreme Court has, I think the court thinks, gone the other way. So I guess I would accept that kind of ruling has, I think the court thinks, gone the other way. So
See, I cannot make out what he is saying there. He said, he starts off, I don't think I'm going to be able to change your mind. Do you think that's a good approach? And then he says, because the state court, and then he says whatever he says, some phrase, gone the other way or something like that. I don't know, but he's already kind of starting off defeated.
I guess I would accept that kind of ruling as long as the court agrees with everything else I have to say.
I don't know.
But
I don't know about that.
assuming that you don't, let's, I guess, just kind of walk through the simple steps here. So
All right, just to give him some credit, maybe that was his attempt at some humor or sarcasm at the beginning, because he says, okay, I understand that the state's, thinks this way and has ruled this way, and I'm okay with that as long as you judge, just agree with everything else I say. So maybe kind of lightening the mood. I don't know.
At issue in this particular case is Idaho Code 19-1107, and the infamous language in it that says that grand jury ought to find indictments and all evidence before them taken together, unexplained or contradicted, would in their judgment warrant a conviction by a trial. And the first question that a court has to ask is, what does that mean? And you start with the plain language, which we argue. What warrants a finding or a conviction by a trial jury is beyond a reasonable doubt. And it meant that back in 1887, when the territory took all of these statutes, almost entirely from the state of California, and it means it today. And then
Okay, so he is arguing, you guys, I've had to listen to this 3 times to make sense of this. So he is arguing that back in 1887 or something like that, these articles and rules and policies, whatever, defined that a grand jury should indict if they have evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. And he said it meant that then, and it means it now. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.
they also pointed out that the great state of California, when they had these on their books from back in the 50s, had already a case in 1962 where they said that it's clearly something more than probable cause, but they weren't too specific about exactly what it meant.
Okay. Maybe I'm misunderstanding this whole issue. I mean, clearly right now he is arguing that the grand jury should have reasonable doubt as in for trial, but not for guilt, just to clarify. This is about beyond a reasonable doubt. So he's arguing that the grand jury level of whether to indict or not should be, and I'm trying to think because I served on a grand jury. And I'm trying to think how it was a long time ago. It was like 20 years ago. How we had to, I thought it was more like probable cause, our instructions. So clearly there is a debate between that. What the expectation should be. He's trying to point out case law that would support his position. Ultimately, the judge does not agree with him, right? Let's see what you're saying, Bootsy. In other words, the grand jury decides if there's enough to go to trial, not whether defendant is good. Oh, that's absolutely it. A grand jury only decides should this person be tried for the crime. Like, is there enough evidence here? But they're saying it should be like you have to have so much evidence that it is beyond doubt that this person is the one that committed the crime. I love jury duty too. Like, I would be a professional juror. They could just pay me to go in and be a juror. I knew what you meant, Bootsy. Yeah. Yep. Lots of people do get that confused. Okay. To me, he was very dry. He just gets into all the, I'm just going to play a little bit more.
And the state has pointed out that if you look at really old life dictionaries, it looks like the word warrant means what you might think it does to old-timey folks, as it does to us, that if it warrants doing something, it means that it would permit doing something. So the plain language seems to support what we're saying. And the biggest problem that I have then is just that obviously everyone in the country disagrees with me, from sea to shining sea. And so I'm now put in a position of trying to explain why that occurred and why in the year of our Lord 2023, we are suddenly finding out that that's not quite how things are supposed to be. Why did we forget that we passed all these laws? And I don't have a great answer to that, other than I think the only time I ever heard about field codes before I was looking into this was like a really.
Okay, so his point right now is that he said from sea to shining sea, but he's saying all across the country, this is the understanding about jury instructions, that it should be beyond a reasonable doubt. But here in Idaho, we have forgotten those laws all of a sudden in 2023. We have forgotten those laws. Oh, that is cool, Bootsy. A virtual mock trial company. That's cool.
Short moment in a class that I took back in law school. So, I mean.
So now he's talking about these field codes. It must be something, it's like, to me, it sounds less than a statute, less than a law, less than a statute, less than a policy. I don't know, like a code. Like we have state revised codes. So he's calling it a field code. And he's like, people don't talk about it a lot. People don't talk about these field codes a lot. And he's saying I might have had, like, he didn't even have a whole class on them. He just had one part of one class that talked about field codes. But now he's going to explain what did he find in a field code.
It's somewhat famously kind of the first attempt to codify the law of the day. It takes place in New York and spreads across the country back in 1850. And I think what I read in the tea leaves from the New York decisions and the later California decisions is that there was pushback at some of the things that the field code is trying to do. And one of the things the field code very openly said it was trying to do was fix the grand jury system. Because the grand jury system was believed to be essentially broken. For a lot of the same reasons we don't seem to like grand juries very much today.
Okay, so he was saying that there were field codes in New York, and then I think later California. This is back in the 1800s. And they were trying to fix the grand jury system. Because even back then, you guys, what do you think? You can let me know in the chat. What do you think some of the issues are with this grand jury system that we have? I didn't like it when I was doing it. I knew it was shady. It was so shady. Like, there's no defense. It's just the prosecutor. I could tell, and trust me, back then, 20 years ago, I wasn't like into true crime. I wasn't following cases like I am now. Like, yeah, I watch Dateline and, true crime shows and stuff like that, but I didn't know as much back then that I do now. But even with that, I sat in there like, this doesn't feel right. Like, sometimes I feel like the prosecutor would come in and tell us things, and I'm like, I know he's not supposed to be saying that right now. It's also recorded, and he was literally pressing play and record on a like tape recorder. And he would shut it off sometimes when he would talk to us. And I was like, don't think you're supposed to be doing that. Like things like that. It's secret, right? And it's a secret. Like nobody's allowed to know, who came in to talk or, what did they show you or anything like that. So yeah, why do we have it? Like, why? I wonder what the opposite argument is. Like, what's the good thing about grand juries? Like, just have a preliminary hearing. Just have a preliminary hearing. Grand juries are supposed to protect citizens from government overreach. They're not meeting that goal, I don't think. That's the opposite, because trust me, yeah. Benefit the crown. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's another issue. Yeah, there's issues about, there's more than one issue with the grand jury, that's for sure.
We essentially believe that grand juries were hard to control. Grand juries would essentially always favor whatever it is they were told.
Well, that's the other thing. He said grand juries are hard to control. Yeah, let me find it, Mike. Grand juries are hard to control. Like when I was on the grand jury, the prosecutors clearly want to control it. Like that message I got. They want you to do what they think, and they will tell you their opinion. They told us, in my experience, the prosecutor straight out told us, we want you to make this a true bill, or we don't think we have enough yet for this one to be a true bill. But the group I was with, we understood we didn't have to listen to him. And I think a couple times we went against what he wanted. So that's the hard to control part. Like, juries can say indict when maybe there's not enough. Even the prosecutors, like, we don't have enough evidence. I don't think that was the case in the Idaho 4 case. The entire system is, Jen. It is. Like, yeah. So we're going to start here. Let's keep track of all the flaws in this system. Starting with, the process of the indictment coming from the grand jury. Yep. Hi, Nomadic Duck Man. Hey, Angel. All right, now I'm going to skip up to, I think this is where Judge is going to talk, I think. Yeah. It's a couple seconds after this. Right there.
Well, Your Honor, if that were true, then I'm not really sure what I'm doing with my life, because I've spent much of it arguing that things that everyone in the state is doing is wrong.
True.
And occasionally, rarely, but occasionally, somebody says, no, that guy's right. And my client walks out of prison. So
oh, wait a minute. I went too far. What are you doing?
Well,
You're right there.
given the wrong instructions if everybody's using that instruction throughout the state.
Well, Your Honor, if that were true, then I'm not really sure what I'm doing with my life, because I've spent much of it arguing that things that everyone in the state is doing is wrong.
True.
And occasionally, rarely, but occasionally, somebody says, no, that guy's right, and my client walks out of prison. So
Well, that's fine. You can make an argument that something should change, but are you telling me that other places in the state are giving a different instruction that it should be beyond a reasonable doubt?
What I'm telling the court is that it appears that up until 1980, that was true. And so
Okay, so John Judge just said, are you telling me that in other places in Idaho, grand jury instructions are telling the grand jury that your indictment needs to be beyond a reasonable doubt? And then he's coming back, Logsden's coming back and saying, well, up until the 1980s, like that was the standard or that was the law.
the Supreme Court enters its rule, sort of has this ruling that talks about that, but nobody's arguing about it because they don't have access to the internet and nobody has a copy of the field code or what California was up to.
Well, Justin Weisslein argued about it in a dissent in Edmondson.
And we thank him for it, although.
Okay.
If
you
you
can't
go
say
back,
that there hasn't been an argument about it.
well. No. If you go back and you read what Justice Weisslein did.
This is going to be an issue, you guys. And I wonder if they're going to address this through an appeals process, right? So what he was saying, Tony, hi, Tony Stevenson. So what Logsden has been arguing is that there has been a long-standing history that has defined the definition of, or the way that a grand jury should rule if someone should be indicted, it should be beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay. And he went all the way back to the 1800s. And then he's talking about these field codes. These field codes came about in the 80s. And he's saying if you think back to the 80s, I'm an 80s kid. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have computers. We didn't have technology. We didn't have email. And so information didn't get out spread the way that it does now. And so he's saying that the probable cause for grand juries has kind of hung around because we're used to doing it that way. And nobody really got the message that it was supposed to be changed or whatever. Like that's his argument. That's what he's arguing. It's the Renaissance. The 80s are the Renaissance era. Heck yeah.
Justice Weisslein didn't know about the field code. He knew it came out of California. He knew that it meant something different.
I think it's attached on the dissent. Some of that.
No, California.
Those are earlier. That's the earlier session.
He has the California code and he has the stuff from the territories. That's what he's got. But he doesn't know. If you read the field code, which apparently nobody did, except, Justice Field in California. If you read it, it literally tells you what it's trying to do. It spells it right out. And you can find it for free on Google Books. That's where I got it. I don't have a copy. I'm not even sure where you find it. But except for Google Books, you can find this thing. And they had a whole preamble to how they're trying to save the concept of grand.
Was he saying Google Books? You can find it on Google Books, or was he trying to say Google Docs? I don't know. We got to find that field code. So Judge said, well, nobody's argued this in front of the Supreme Court. Or maybe there's one person who did try to argue it, but they didn't have the field codes. And it was back in the 80s, and that's why he didn't have the field codes, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So I guess I just wanted to bring up this point that I feel like they really did have a good case. against the jury instructions, right? So that was one thing. And then they had another where they were saying, the PCA is not, doesn't have evidence for it, right? Hey, Kane. Sammy T, hello. Just looking at some of your comments. He's alive to fight. That's right. And things might be going his way after tomorrow. Is this thing on? Loud and clear, Kane. Loud and clear. I had Texas Instruments too. I went to college with a typewriter, you guys. A typewriter. Mine wasn't even electric, like those fancy electric typewriters. I was jealous of the people who had those because you could just like backspace and it had the whiteout. Like I come from the days of whiteout, and the typewriters would automatically change your mistakes. That's funny. All right, now I want to listen to someone else talk about this and see if what I was saying makes sense or not. Nope, we want to go back. Okay. Not that one. This one. All right. Again, not watching. Just listen to a few points. This is the lawyer you know.
Situations like this.
Well, they take two forms. One, you attack the grand jury itself, its makeup, who's in.
Okay, what are the challenges that the defense has with grand juries? Okay. And he says the first one is the makeup of the grand jury, because as far as I can remember, I got a letter to show up, and as long as I could do it, because my experience on the grand jury, and maybe every state is different, but I had to do it for like 2 months in the summer. And I had to go like, it was 2 or 3 days a week or something like that. Maybe it was 2 days a week for like 2 months or something like that. Yeah. And then you heard a bunch of different cases.
There, prejudice and bias in the grand jury. The other is prosecutorial misconduct in the grand jury, where the prosecutors, because remember, there's no defense lawyer, there's no judge, it's just the prosecutor and the grand jurors. So if you don't have an ethical prosecutor in there, there's all sorts of available abuses that a prosecutor can do. So it takes the.
All right. So think about that. And I know Dago talked about the prosecution and this type of stuff yesterday on his show. If you have prosecutorial misconduct and it's in a grand jury situation, how does anybody even know? Like, that's the perfect place to hide those actions, right? That's a great point.
Those two forms, either the grand jury itself, its makeup, or the prosecutor doing something wrong in the grand jury.
Right. So when you say prosecutorial misconduct, you're saying prosecutors saying, oh, there's a confession when there wasn't, or using a piece of evidence they know is fraudulent or planted, or doing something that they know is wrong, or committing fraud on the court, basically.
Right. Giving them bad legal advice, because the prosecutor is the lawyer for the grand jury. So they rely on that prosecutor to say, all right, what is the law? And how does this crime comport with the law? And so the wrong law obviously comes out with a wrong decision from the grand jury.
Right. And when you're talking about the makeup of the grand jury, you mean, are those the people that are supposed to be on this grand jury, or was there something obvious that disqualified them from sitting on this grand jury, including some of the case law that was cited here where somebody made it onto the grand jury inappropriately. Why don't you tell that kind of example of another issue with the grand jury?
Right. Well, in the pleading, the motion, they have a situation where they cite this case. It's called Roberts. And in that case, a grand juror didn't show up one day. So the sheriff went out and grabbed somebody randomly and put them in the grand juror as a grand juror.
Oh my
that
gosh.
person wasn't properly qualified to be a grand juror. So they stuck him in there. So he, number one, we have a grand juror who isn't supposed to be a grand juror, not properly qualified. Number two, we have somebody in the grand jury room that is not sworn to secrecy according to the statute. So we have all sorts of problems.
You literally are sworn to secrecy. Like, I had to sign this big document like that you cannot talk about anything that happened here. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. You are literally sworn to secrecy. I'll have to go find that paperwork. I'm sure I have it somewhere. I'll go let me make a note to myself to find my grand jury, because you get a big certificate and everything because, you know, you did your civic duty like that. And then he's saying a juror didn't show up one day, so they went out on the street, but he's saying they weren't qualified. I mean, there's really not too many. You really don't have to qualify except to be a registered voter. Like, if I'm pretty sure as long as you're a registered voter, you qualify. Right? Hey, Twiz. How you doing?
We have them voting on an indictment when they shouldn't be voting on the indictment. So in that particular case, they did throw out the indictment.
Right, exactly. And that kind of gives an example of where we have to get to in the very difficult task of challenging a grand jury indictment and winning. CH asked, does the time delay in paneling a grand jury come into play? No, because it was done with.
All right, let me find another point that they're going over this doc. Let me see real quick. Here it is. Where's the play button?
Jury record and transcript. The state argues that Mr. Cobberger is only entitled to an audio recording and or a transcript of the grand jury proceedings and the grand juror notes, but not other enumerated items set forth in Idaho Criminal Rule 6. The state also objects to a qualified protective order, preferring instead to keep requested materials protected by adherence to the word sealed. Release of the grand jury proceedings governed by rule and statute are materials necessary to Mr. Cobberger's defense. Article 1, Section 8 of the Idaho Constitution, Idaho Criminal Rule 6, Idaho Codes 19, all these different sections provide authority for release to Mr. Cobberger. Good cause is not required, but exists to release all items into Mr. Cobberger's motion as set forth below. So, just to start out, whoops, I don't know how I did that. There we go. So just to start out, they're basically saying the state only wants to give a recording. They don't want to give other things that are enumerated in the rule. Defense wants things that are enumerated in the rule. They don't have to show good cause, but they will here, right? So that's kind of the basic of as we jump.
I mean, it's just another thing to me that just, you know, the defense had to fight to get, right? All the things that, you know, evidence wasn't being turned over. And then you have this grand jury meeting about Brian Cobberger, indicting him. And then, okay, now that my client is indicted, Ann Taylor would say, show me everything that you used in this hearing that we are not allowed to be at. And the prosecution only wanted to give her the audio and the transcripts, like nothing else. Like, that's very, very suspicious. Twiz, is there an appeal going on? No, but yesterday we watched the Supreme Court argument, and to me it seemed promising. Like, they're going to make some changes to allow more issues to be appealed for people who have taken a plea deal. So if the Supreme Court rules in favor of Hunter, there will be more issues that Brian would have the opportunity to appeal. Things that fall under miscarriage of justice, things like biases, things like misconduct, other things like that. Yeah, it had to do with people who waive their rights. Sorry. Yes. If you accepted a plea deal and you waived your right to plea, you can still, they're trying to add more and make the process a little easier for the defendants. How's that special prosecution team handling the I think we talked about that a couple days ago. Dago and I both did. Yeah, so we gotta get on somebody's neck and find out what's going on. Find out what's going on with that Dateline leak. Right?
That's what the defense is saying. And as we read this, well, I'll save that. Okay. So, procedural background. Mr. Cobberger was indicted by grand jury on May 16, 2023. He filed a motion to make available the record of all proceedings of the grand jury pursuant to these rules. On May 19th, the state then filed their state's response to defendant's motion and proposed order. We're going to look at that proposed order later to talk about what the state has basically agreed to, or what the state would like to do in this situation and what they would like to give over based on or in comparison.
Okay, so after the grand jury indictment, Brian Koberger's team is like, okay, they filed a motion so that they could get the record of all the proceedings, right? Just like give us everything that happened during the grand jury session. And of course, the state came back, half a month later, and they're like, oh, we don't know what we can give you.
Into what the defense wants, the parties were not able to reach an agreement regarding the release of grand.
You guys, why does this have to be an agreement? Why isn't it you had a grand jury hearing, give everything to the defense? There is such an issue with this evidence. Like, it's evidence coming from the police department through the prosecution's office to the defense. There's issues with that. They don't get everything. It takes them 3 years to get something. Is that a quack like a unique peep over there? Oh, because you're the duck man. Yeah, we're the peeps. This is ridiculous. I don't think that the prosecution should have a say to negotiate. Well, we'll give you everything except what Dylan and Bethany said. Do you think that's how it went? Let me see what you guys were saying. They had already passed a law for firing squad. Okay. Oh my God. I aired it yesterday, Aurora Rain. We watched it live together. I did stop it every once in a while to talk about what was being said. So if you want that kind of version, you can watch my option. Kathy's Indie Zone, I think she just posted the link without, I don't think she was, I think she just aired it. So you can just watch it without interruption if you want. And hello, by the way, Aurora Rain. You're welcome. We like to support other creators around here too. We all, I don't think a lot of us would have focused on the Supreme Court hearing if it wasn't for Kathy's Indie Zone. So shout out to her. Big shout out to her.
Jury materials, which resulted in the state filing their supplemental response to defendant's motion regarding grand jury record and transcript on June 6th. The defense's reply follows. So the state basically proposed an order that the judge could have signed saying, here's what we think. Defense wants more. Secondary argument is whether we're going to use a qualified protective order or the word sealed. That'll be kind of at the end of the motion. So first, Mr. Cobberger has a legal right to challenge the grand jury indictment, and the court should release all records requested in his motions. So Dad, let's take a second here. Cobberger has the right to challenge these grand jury proceedings. Nobody is arguing with that at this point. But do you see anything in any of the research that you've done, any of the motions that we've read? I know the defense says that's the reason he stood silent, and I know he says it in the hearing we're about to watch later. Again, if you want to hear it actually from the horse's mouth, the defense attorney saying the reason Brian Cobberger stood silent is to protect their right to challenge this grand jury indictment and not agree with the validity of it. Do you see?
Ooh, I never heard that before, you guys. The reason Brian, this isn't the lawyer you know's opinion. He's saying that somebody said it in a hearing. The reason Brian stood silent is so that he could challenge the grand jury indictment. That's crazy. This is very old, Twiz. This was back in 23, right? Yes, I will replay that. I will replay that.
Motions that we've read. Grand jury indictment, and the court should release all records requested in his motions. So Dad, let's take a second here. Cobberger has the right to challenge these grand jury proceedings. Nobody is arguing with that at this point. But do you see anything in any of the research that you've done, any of the motions that we've read? I know the defense says that's the reason he stood silent, and I know he says it in the hearing we're about to watch later. Again, if you want to hear it actually from the horse's mouth, the defense attorney saying the reason Brian Cobberger stood silent is to protect their right to challenge this grand jury indictment and not agree with the validity of it.
So to protect, oh my gosh, how did he word that? To protect his right.
Cobberger has the right to challenge these grand jury proceedings. Nobody is arguing with that at this point. But do you see anything in any of the research that you've done, any of the motions that we've read? I know the defense says that's the reason he stood silent, and I know he says it in the hearing we're about to watch later. Again, if you want to hear it actually from the horse's mouth, the defense attorney saying the reason Brian Cobberger stood silent is to protect their right to challenge this grand jury indictment and not agree with the validity of it. Do you see anything that says if you plead not guilty that you couldn't also preserve that right?
No, I really don't. And keep in mind, even though he didn't say anything, the judge still entered a plea for him, and the case went.
So the defense says that's the reason he stood silent, and I know he says it in the hearing we're about to watch later. Again, if you want to hear it actually from the horse's mouth, the defense attorney saying the reason Brian Cobberger stood silent is to protect their right to challenge this grand jury indictment and not agree with the validity of it. Do you see anything that says if you plead not guilty that you couldn't also preserve that right?
No, I really don't. And keep in mind, even though he didn't say anything, the judge still entered a.
Okay, so he's saying he could have said not guilty and still had the same outcome, but the defense was claiming that he didn't say anything because they're not agreeing with the validity. So I think Lucy's right. It's kind of like, I'm not even going to give you the, I'm not even going to utter a word about what you just did, as kind of like an even stronger statement that I don't agree with what you did in this grand jury indictment. Yeah, to snub the court, something like that. Yeah. I think just to make a profound statement, you know, especially if they're going to use this, going back to the PCA, the grand jury indictment, if they're going to go all the way back to this and then pile on other things, because there's other issues, I feel like this is the baseline, right? The like ground zero for challenging and appealing his case. And then there's other issues. There's like so many other issues. There's instances of bias. There's instances of like due process and things like that. So many issues. Yes. So today I just wanted to start with this. I'm going to call it ground zero. You know, Brian's not in jail if there's no indictment, right? So
a plea for him, and the case went on just like it would normally do. There was an arraignment. That was a legal arraignment, whether he said anything or not.
Procedurally speaking, standing silent is the same thing as pleading not guilty. And if he was worried about protecting his right to challenge the validity of the grand jury indictment, all his lawyer would have had to say is, Judge, without waiving any right to challenge the grand jury indictment, and then Brian Cobberger could have pled not guilty, or the attorney could have pled not guilty on his behalf. It does not matter, in my opinion, right? Now, standing silent, he is correct.
I think legally, I'm going to skip forward a little bit because we're getting the point of this. Legally, I understand what this guy's saying. It doesn't matter. Like he could have flat out said not guilty, but if you want to be snarky, if you want to like really like, you know, make that extra, you know, I'm just not even going to say anything. So I think we understand that part. All right. What else do they talk about here?
When the small community of Moscow, Idaho had been exposed to 6 months of intense local, national, and international media coverage. More on that later. If you're really interested on what their expert has to say, the hearing right after this video that we watch explains that more. Because the state has provided extensive discovery, Mr. Cobberger knows that exculpatory evidence exists. So what do you think about that, Dad? Their first argument is big time.
Okay, let me get this back up on the screen because I'm going to read it. Okay, so this says a grand jury was impaneled at a time when the small community of Moscow, Idaho had been exposed to 6 months of intense local, national, and international media coverage. So it would be interesting to, because we know all the things that have been leaked and said about Brian and pictures shown about Brian and interviews that have been done about people saying things about Brian. I'm wondering from the time he was arrested to the grand jury hearing, what were the narratives during that time? I think that's interesting because they only got worse. Right? Making myself a note. So from the arrest to the grand jury. So because, you know, these narratives were online talking about him, you know, he's weird, he's this, he's that. So they had this 6 months of intense local, national, and international media coverage. Because the state has provided extensive discovery, Mr. Cobberger knows that exculpatory evidence exists. Can't lie, that would be perjury. So exculpatory evidence exists. Whether a fair and impartial panel of grand jurors was assembled amidst intense media coverage is a significant question the defense must evaluate. Whether inadmissible or exculpatory evidence was presented to the grand jury is a significant question the defense must evaluate. Of course, they didn't show that to the grand jury. No way. They don't do that. Like in my experience, they only show evidence that would make you indict. They're not going to show exculpatory evidence, in my opinion. Why would you go? I don't know. Then why go to the grand jury? They're just not going to show that. And while there are many other legal arguments Mr. Cobberger may pursue related to the grand jury proceedings, and there are other issues related to the grand jury proceeding. There are. How the grand jury was selected and what evidence was presented illustrate good cause for the defense's need for all materials set forth in its motion. Let me see what you guys are saying. I often wondered how much of what little bit that has been released if Ann Taylor had it. I know. Yeah, of course, because the grand jury is, nomadic. The grand jury hides the exculpatory evidence. Like, they show what they want to show. I mean, and they're the prosecution. Just looking at your comments. I know we were watching Judge earlier. I'm like, at least he had a pleasant face and he smiled and he spoke kindly. I'm like, I miss Judge. Hippler wouldn't allow exculpatory evidence in. Yeah, right. All right, you guys love the chat. Is Jimothy in here? Hey there. He's Jim and I'm Kim.
Prosecutor has to let them know that. If the jury wants to see other evidence, they have a right to ask.
Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. Because remember, Jay Logsdon lets it slip. I got to go back to that hearing and listen for that part. He let it slip in court that the grand jury members were asking for more evidence. And
Their first argument is
you are allowed to do that. When I was on the grand jury, we did that. We're like, well, we want to see this, or we want to hear from this person. The grand jury can absolutely do that. In my experience.
big time media attention, and he knows exculpatory evidence exists. Can we say at this point the defense is confirming they believe they have evidence that proves his innocence?
Oh, I'm sure they think they have evidence that proves his innocence.
So them saying something like that is not the same thing as there is potentially exculpatory evidence in the grand jury proceeding, or there is potentially exculpatory evidence somewhere else. They are saying at this point, we believe that we have exculpatory evidence.
Right. And it wasn't presented at the grand jury. I think that's
That's huge. That's huge. They, that word believe is not in there. They weren't saying we think there's exculpatory evidence. They were saying there is exculpatory evidence, and the grand jury didn't get to hear that.
That's what they're trying to infer.
Right. And they are going to try to challenge the grand jury proceedings based on the fact that the prosecutor did not let the grand jury know that exculpatory evidence exists.
I don't necessarily think that the prosecutor has to let them know that. If the jury wants to see other evidence, they have a right to ask for it, but there is no necessity for it.
And I think that there is. I think that
we disagree on that.
Right. And I think it is nuanced. I don't think the state has to necessarily present it a way that the defense attorney would present it, but I think there are certain things that could be considered prosecutorial misconduct if they hide certain evidence or don't present certain evidence to the grand jury.
I agree with him. What's his first name? The younger, the son. That's crazy. Like, what do you guys think in the chat? Should a grand jury only be allowed to hear the evidence that makes the person look guilty? And if the prosecution has evidence that's even possibly, Peter, thank you, that's even possibly exculpatory, that they should be able to not show that? That's crazy. Absolutely, James Moen. Absolutely. Appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, we did that last time for you. Thanks for your support, James. Got a little thank you going on over here. Where's it at? I'll do this one. Where's my new one?
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Clock it.
So I gotta say thank you, clock it.
Had to get my clock theme in there. Appreciate you, James. Yeah, this is crazy. We need to get rid of this system, in my opinion.
Are you going to say something, or are you?
No. There's an Idaho code, and I was going to get that for you, but go ahead.
Okay, so, but this is something the defense is planning on challenging. The first things they bring up is exculpatory evidence that they believe exists, that they don't think the grand jury knows about. And number two, the media attention that this case got for 6 months. Okay, so those are the first two kind of swings that the defense is taking.
Right.
Whether a fair and impartial panel of grand jurors was assembled amidst intense media coverage is a significant question the defense must evaluate. So they want to see exactly what you said before, Dad. The way this grand jury was impaneled and the people that ended up on that grand jury is incredibly important, especially.
All right, we got those points. Let's go to any other points. Let's see. Right. I thought this was better than me just reading the doc. Okay. Mr. Cobberger is entitled to pursue relief on a single error or cumulative errors. To determine if there are cumulative errors, good cause exists to review all items requested in his motion. Cumulative error exists when the cumulative effect of the errors and indiscretions, some of which alone might have been enough to tip the scale. Interesting. So kind of like the domino effect, right? They're calling it a cumulative effect, just like building one on top of another on another. Hey, Skull, thank you so much. We got a gifted membership. Let me see who got that. Bootsy, is that you? Yes. Welcome, Bootsy. All right. Thank you, Skull. Appreciate that. One. Welcome to the green team. Awesome. All right.
And bring up the state's what the state kind of agreed to in their state's response. So this was the proposed order.
Skull, I just saw you did two of them. Susan Russo got the other one. Make sure you guys thank Skull. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Drop some chick emojis in the chat. Welcome our unique peeps.
So the state agreed basically that they would turn over a transcript of the proceedings herein, except deliberations, so not the jury deliberations, will be prepared as contemplated by the rule. A copy of the transcript and record will be provided to the state and the defense with the understanding that the same will remain confidential.
Wonder if I know they got something, but I wonder what they got.
Versus the grand jury, they'd be entitled to the preliminary hearing transcript as well. So it's identical to whether it's a preliminary hearing or a grand jury, they're entitled to the record that was made in that grand jury.
Which is a little bit different, obviously, because they were there, so they would know.
Right, preliminary hearing, they'd be there, right?
But as we'll see as we get through the defense's motion, they're worried about not knowing what they don't know because they weren't there, so they won't be able to tell if certain portions are missing.
Yeah, right. And restrictions.
Right. So again, we're back to the defense's motion now after seeing what the.
So think about that. Back then, the defense there. I feel there's many situations during this whole case where they're going to be able to prove biases, possible misconduct. I don't know, definitely biases, other terminology that would fit under that, miscarriage of justice. But they don't know what they don't know with this grand jury because they weren't there. So, they need all the evidence, and withholding evidence is not allowed. It's not allowed. So if that happened all the way back to the grand jury and we're talking about Brady violations, it could possibly go all the way back to this grand jury hearing. That's crazy. Crazy. Right, Susan? Yes, Batanti gets brought up a lot when we're talking about these things, right? Because he's the one that pointed out about Bethany having exculpatory evidence, right? And we haven't seen any of that, right? Will humanity still exist, right? Oh my goodness. Awesome. What else do they get to in here? Just wrapping it up. Okay. I want to go back and I want to listen to Jay Logsdon just actually say those words out of his mouth. Right here.
Some of that.
No, California.
Oh, those are earlier. Oh, that's the earlier session.
He has the California code, and he has the stuff from the territories. That's what he's got. But he doesn't know.
So he is making his argument that they gave the wrong jury instructions. And his argument is that they should have said beyond a reasonable doubt. Let me see where he says it.
Martinez and Jones.
Oh, wait. This is the other guy.
And everybody can win. I do have that. From the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution. And a preliminary hearing would be offered to give us the ability to until taking up this argument. But from what I could tell, going back to the field code and looking at everything else in the statutes that we have on hand, I mean, essentially, it's like grand jury like. Typically, for the presentment, the idea for who is getting the presentment seems to come from the grand jury members themselves. They just come in with some information about somebody, they make an accusation like it's a complaint, and then it goes off and it gets treated more like a complaint than it does. I don't know if the court found anything otherwise, but that's the way that it appears to supposed to work. Like I said, I don't know if anybody's ever done one, but I do think that what the state accomplished in the indictment in this proceeding would easily meet the requirements to present. And I don't think we would have any real ability to argue with it. I mean, the grand jury itself can just come in and say, these are some facts I heard from my neighbor, and I think that guy committed a crime, and that's enough to start the wheels of justice. And I'm relatively certain we've met that requirement.
That's another good point I didn't hear him make earlier. He said, and this is true because you can't control people. He said people who sit on the grand jury could come in and say, hey, I heard something from my neighbor. And they might not even say it out loud, but they just are information that they know. My neighbor knows this person and he's a bad dude. And so I think he committed the crime, right? I mean, of course, I know any juror could think that way, but it's more one-sided when it's just the sorry, I was reading James's comment and talking at the same time. Don't read and talk at the same time. Stop that thought right in the middle of it.
And so if the court does that, then the state still has a piece of paper that says the death penalty can be sought from the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution. And a preliminary hearing would be offered to give us the ability to take a closer look at this case than what was given at the actual grand jury. So, you know, everybody can win. I do have that as an option.
You know, think about this. I wish I knew what date this was. It had to have been, let me see. What date was this? October 26th of 2023. So think about this. In October of 2023, I think Ann Taylor was so confident that they could have got Brian off with fighting just the indictment, like just being able to prove the lack of evidence and the exculpatory evidence. If they would have been allowed to, they were asking to go back to a preliminary hearing. Can we go back to a preliminary hearing, fight this out in court, get the evidence we need, that exculpatory evidence, and we'll prove that what you have in your probable cause doesn't have evidence. That would have been interesting. James. Yeah, James, no worries. I trust Dago. I think he trusts me too. We're good.
Does the court have any questions? It looks like you might.
I might on your reply.
Okay.
We'll see.
That's it.
Thank you.
All right. I wanted to hear him say the part about the grand jury.
I agree with me. The court is able to save the indictment by turning it into a presentment. There's a presentment. There's a lot laxer evidentiary rules and everything else. Much of the complaints we would have about it essentially disappeared, and the state has its presentment. And as far as I'm told, one of the reasons why we had a grand jury in this case is because in another case, I had argued that if you don't do a grand jury, you can't have the death penalty, which I still believe. But if you have a presentment, that's also listed. And so the state still gets what it wants. And we get a preliminary hearing, which it seems to me would be worth the candle for us.
I think there was some instruction about present for the grand jury, was it not? They were given that option.
Well, I think they were told about it. So I don't know.
You guys, is he saying a presentment? Is that another word I got to go look up? He's saying that they should have had an option for a presentment. Anybody heard that before? What's a presentment? Grand jury. Whoops. Presentment. Grand jury presentment. Oh my gosh, it's a thing. Let's look. No, I'm just using the AI definition. I just keep it simple over here. Have you guys ever heard of this? It's a formal accusation of a crime issued by a grand jury on its own initiative based on their own knowledge or investigation, rather than a bill of indictment requested by a prosecutor. It acts as a report of wrongdoing, but in modern federal practice, it cannot initiate a prosecution directly. A grand jury presentment is a formal accusation of a crime issued by a grand jury on its own initiative based on their own knowledge or investigation, rather than a bill of indictment requested by a prosecutor. This is so convoluted. It acts as a report of wrongdoing, But in modern federal court, it cannot initiate a prosecution directly. So what? We know you did something wrong, but you're not going to be prosecuted? That's so weird. Independent initiative. Unlike an indictment, which is presented to the grand jury by a prosecutor, a presentment is created by the grand jury members. That's so weird. None of those people would know how to do that. They're just people from the community. Investigative tool. Grand jurors use this to report crimes they discovered during investigations. I guarantee you they did not tell them about this. I've never heard this. I never heard this. Transformation needed. To start a prosecution, a presentment is usually converted into an indictment by the prosecutor and then voted on by the grand jury. This is so weird. An indictment is a formal charge. A presentment is a formal accusation. Why do these systems have to be so confusing? What do you guys think about that? Isn't that crazy? Like, this is crazy. Yeah, kind of like a statement, like, yeah, this is crazy. Oh, I will listen. I will. I'm going to listen for that, James. I will listen for that. Oh my goodness.
No, and the court maybe can find it. I can't find a single presentment in the history of Idaho.
So he said there's not one single presentment in the whole state of Idaho. So that's never happened. They always do indictments.
I don't know if they've really ever been used.
I don't know.
And I hadn't really even thought about what they are or what they meant until taking up this argument. But from what I could tell, going back to the field code and looking at everything else in the statutes that we have on hand, I mean, essentially, it's like grand jury light. Typically, for the presentment, the idea for who is getting the presentment seems to come from the grand jury members themselves. They just come in with some information about somebody, they make an accusation like it's a complaint, and then it goes off and it gets treated more like a complaint than it does an indictment. I don't know if the court found anything otherwise, but that's the way that it appears to supposed to work. Like I said, I don't know if anybody's ever done one, but I do think that what the state accomplished in the indictment in this proceeding would easily meet the requirements to present. And I don't think we would have any real ability to argue with it. I mean, the grand jury itself can just come in and say, these are some facts I heard from my neighbor, and I think that guy committed a crime.
I think this must lead him to it.
They were given that option.
Well, I think they were told about it. So I don't know if the court maybe can find it. I can't find a single presentment in the history of Idaho.
Instruction about present.
I'm looking for him where he says the grand jury.
Because in another case, I had argued that if you don't do a grand jury, you can't have the death penalty, which I still believe. But if you have a presentment, that's also listed. And so the state consider the fact that, at the very least, California knew what it was up to, and that
all right, I'll find it later. And I'll clip it. So just the part where Jay logs in absolutely said that the what did the grand jury say? Now I even forget what I was looking for. Where the part where he says the grand jury wanted more information, right? He literally comes out and says that in this hearing, and yeah, I'll find it later and I'll clip it for tomorrow. But so when we're thinking about all the evidence that we have seen where doesn't look like there is evidence to prove at all, definitely not beyond a reasonable doubt, in my opinion, that Brian Cobberger committed this crime. Definitely not enough evidence to show he committed it alone. And now he's signed a plea agreement saying that he did this crime. And we're looking at the appeals process. What are his possibilities for appeals? Looking at if he's allowed to appeal miscarriage of justice. If that comes down the road, hopefully we're going to hear from the Supreme Court soon. He's going to have a whole lot more options, in my opinion, because right now, as it stands, the misrepresentation by the defense attorney, I don't think. What do you guys think about that? Would he appeal because or ineffective counsel? Do you think he would have ineffective counsel? Like, I don't think so. And then the other one would be if he was charged too much. The like punishment is beyond what it was allowed for the crimes, and I don't think that fits either. So then I know there's other possibilities. Like I've heard people toss around terms like, I think habeas corpus, or I don't know, all these, I'm not a lawyer, all these legal terms that I always have to look up. So I'm going to keep exploring these options that I think the defense has. It's interesting to look back now. I know this hearing was from a long time ago, but I think it's interesting to look back now. I feel like they fought the good fight, the defense. Like, I feel like they did everything that they called out every issue. They appealed things before there was going to be a trial. They filed the Franks motion. They filed the Brady. I think they have a lot of things on record that could benefit something happening in the future. So today was all about this interlocutory grand jury indictment that they were opposing, and they wanted to go back to do a preliminary hearing. I think that's interesting. I think that's so interesting. Oh, thanks, Susan. I appreciate that, because sometimes I'm like, am I making sense with what I'm saying? I love that, like, I'm learning all these like legal terms and things about our law and stuff like that. I like to keep learning, but definitely no expert. But I like discussing it, looking into these cases. You guys always have great information in the chat and opinions. So yeah, I think I'm going to clock out now. Let me just make sure I didn't have anything else. I thought I was going to get into talking about the Brady violations today, but that's like its own topic in itself. And I've spent almost 2 hours talking about just this interlocutory appeal. So yeah, we'll clock out for today. And is this done, Caps? Hey, thank you for that. I appreciate you. You know what I'll do? Let me get the Discord link. I was promoting that earlier. Let me get that Discord link. How do I do this? I told you guys, we're all learning new things together. Invite to server. I hope I'm not sharing. Am I? Stop. I don't think I was. Copy the link. All right. Let me put it in here. And then if someone would click on this link, if you haven't joined Discord yet, let me know if it works. Let me know if that works or not. Outcast 420. Look at you. Hey, you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Outcast, because you shouted me out and spotlighted me on your channel earlier when I was just starting out. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you so much. And if you guys are late night owls, go on over to Outcast channel at night. It's a blast over there. A blast. Let's see. We'll do this
Clock
one.
it. So I gotta say thank you. Clock it.
Clock it. On Crime O'Clock over here. Thank you. I told you. Be nice in the chat. Be nice in the chat, you guys. Yes, Outcast has a phenomenal channel. Someone can drop that link for me, please. Oh, I'm getting notified that people are joining the Discord. Awesome. Yep, I'll be in there as soon as I end this. All right, so we got the Discord link working. And let's see. I told you I'm hanging out with my sister tonight. She's my little sister. When we get together, I might be looking a little rough tomorrow morning. We'll see. So I'm going to be and ask you to be flexible tomorrow. I've been sticking pretty good to my 11:30 time slot. I don't know how long she's going to be here. So I'll post a community message if I'm going to go on later than normal. But I will be on tomorrow. So it just depends what I'm going to do with her tomorrow, because we're going out for my mom's birthday. Thanks so much for everybody who joined today. We had a great crowd, lots of people chatting it up in the chat, good information. I learned some new things today, and it's always interesting when we go back to the beginning and with this new lens that we have now, right? We've got a new way of looking at things because we know so much more. So I'm going to do that again tomorrow, talking about the Brady violations. Okay. So I hope you will join me back then and have a wonderful rest of your day, you guys. I don't know if I saw Dago in here, but Dago usually goes on a little bit after me. So make sure you go over to the True Crime Cafe with Dago. Go to Outcast channel late at night. I know Skull Mackay was in here earlier too. Please go check out his videos he's got on his page. There's Dago. Yeah, so many awesome creators. And go show Kathy Indie Zone's channel some love, because I wouldn't even be probably as focused on this appeal process as I am without her like highlighting that Supreme Court case too. So all right, everybody, I'm clocking out. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Hope you felt the spark. Please hit that like before it gets dark. Subscribe. It's free and keeps us going strong. You're part of the crew now, right where you belong. Join us next time. Same truth, same fire. We bring the heat and never tire. We're typically unique and proud to be a husband and wife in podcast harmony. Be unique, yeah, that's you and me. Don't forget to like and hit subscribe, it's free. Come back again, we'll be right here with truth and laughs and zero fear. We don't always agree, but that's the show. One love, two minds, letting it flow. We dig deep, we crack jokes, we call it like we see. If that's your vibe, you belong here with me. We don't always agree, but that's the show. One love, two minds, letting it flow. We dig deep with crack jokes, we call it like we see. If that's your vibe, you belong here with me. We don't always agree, but you felt the spark. Please hit that like before it gets dark. We dig deep with crack jokes, we call it like we see. If that's your vibe, you belong here with me. Thanks for watching, hope you felt the spark. Please hit that like before it gets dark. Please hit that like before it gets dark. It's free, it keeps us going strong. You're part of the crew, now right where you belong. Join us next time, same truth, same fire. We bring the heat and never tire. We're typically unique and proud to be a husband and wife and proud to be a husband and wife in podcast harmony. Yeah, that's you and me, that's you and me. Don't forget to like, hit subscribe, it's free. Come back again, we'll be right here with truth and laughs and zero fear.